Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here at the launch of this very important report, which is a first, and I'm glad it's Scotland's first. I want to see a lot of other firsts that we can do as Scotland and take forward. And it's great to be in the company of colleagues working tirelessly to tackle sexual exploitation, who are on the panel, but also joining us via Zoom. Yes, my name is Diane, and in my late teens, I was exploited in London at the supposed high-class end of prostitution, and then trafficked to a prostitution in the Middle East. For the last 25 years, I've had the great honour and delight of supporting women to exit prostitution and provide specialist services and develop policy. As many of you will be aware, experts in this field state that sexual exploitation and sex trafficking in Scotland is at epidemic proportions. The UK's Joint Slavery and Trafficking Analysis Centre has said that adult service websites represent the most significant enabler of sexual exploitation in the UK. And that was the kind of board that, you know, was kind of leapt off into this report that is being launched today as a response to that. These websites, as we know, are facilitating this abuse. They are currently operating freely, and it's extremely lucrative. Profiteers and pimps and organised crime groups have used these websites to create a mainstream market to sell women for sex, to commodify them as products. It is beyond naive to think that these website facilitators, I call them pimp websites, are unaware of what is being facilitated, which is sexual exploitation on a grand scale. Trafficking and pimping, as we all know, is big business. And not only do these websites facilitate that, they incentivize that, and they make it easy. They are encouraging violence against women. And for wider society, they perpetuate harmful stereotypes and gender inequality. Now, so those providing the websites, their hands are not clean, no matter how much they hold them up in defence and say, we're just helping A connect with B. Their hands are not clean. They're a key part of the supply chain, connecting traffickers with sex buyers. And we know that sex buyers and the demand is what fuels the industry. Now, traffickers are willing to take big risks because of the sizable profits, but they also want to reduce risks where they can so that their crimes can carry on and uninterrupted. They want it to be as easy as is possible for them. Evidence shows, and we know that, they will favour operating in countries where the demand is not tackled by the criminal justice system. So currently the UK and obviously Scotland currently is good for organised crime, and that's a situation we want to change. Now, while we've had a policy in Scotland for 10 years that prostitution is violence against women and girls, which it is, and which is a fantastic policy that we're rightly very proud of, we need that policy to be enacted in a very real, tangible way for those very women and girls. And we need that policy backed up with end-demand legislation that puts the criminal focus on traffickers, pimps, facilitators and sex buyers. We also know that most of the women advertised on these websites in the UK are not British nationals. Many of them are trafficked from overseas. Some are tricked and don't know what they're coming to. Others who've already been groomed or sexually exploited may know about the prostitution, but I'm sure not the reality of what they are going to experience when they get here. We also heard at the Romanian summit that we held recently that traffickers are increasingly targeting vulnerable women already in prostitution, as they believe this affords them protection and that the women knew what they were coming for, and they see that as some kind of a defence, which of course it's not. We also heard that of the Romanian women interviewed by their by Romanian colleagues, by Romanian professionals supporting them. The 83% of those women said they wanted to exit prostitution, and that 60% would not describe it as a job or tell someone else to get involved. And I just want to say that at the nexus of prostitution and trafficking, we see the same abuse and the same trauma. That is why we cannot continue to have these false separations of it's safe here, it's dangerous over there, but it's a job here, but over here it's exploitation. Whether you were born here and have got involved in selling sex to survive or by coercion, or whether you've been trafficked from another country, the abuse feels the same. The human rights violations are the same. And we have a duty of care to fight for and help all women who are victims of commercial sexual exploitation in Scotland. So whether you were born in Bucharest or like me in Dundee, we will fight for you and we will support you. As the Scottish Government rightly states, prostitution is violence against women and girls, and no human being is for sale. It's been touched on already, and you can see in more detail in the report about it being a myth that you can make it safe. You cannot make it safer, and we always hear the same tired old arguments coming up anytime we're trying to discuss tackling demand or the facilitation of that demand. They'll say it will drive everything to the dark web and it will clear out all the good sex buyers and leave the dangerous ones. It won't. The myth of the good punter is just that, it's a myth. We know that Steve Wright was described as a regular, a good guy, known by many women in Ipswich, and being a regular didn't stop him from murdering 5 of them. They will say we won't be able to vet sex buyers. You can't vet them now. On these websites, age verification is optional, and the most you might get is a name or an email address. They say women can report abuse. Great. So when someone's tried to choke you or has raped you, you can report it. Great. Again, this highlights why it does not work. What employer would state that you could only report violence retrospectively? Ruth has already touched on the collaboration of law enforcement with the website providers and how they've used this for leverage and legitimacy. And I felt very strongly when I read the report about that. And I also wanted to touch on that because it is just beyond unacceptable. And I think it bears repeating a number of times. These websites are key enablers. Don't give them credibility. They know what they're involved in. And our NCA don't ask them for data because they say it would be intrusive. Well, I say to that, let them experience prostitution firsthand and find out exactly what intrusive really means at its most extreme and in this context. We see that far from regulating themselves or reporting anything to the police, when through Viva Street, when one trafficker spent £25,000, it wasn't reported to the police. They got in contact with him and gave him an account manager. When challenged in the public domain, they lift up this collaboration with the police as a banner of legitimacy. So don't work with them and give them credibility. Instead, work with Police Scotland's National Human Trafficking Unit about potential criminal activity. Something must be done and something can be done. And we've heard of examples. We've heard of what France have done. We've seen what the United States have done. So we've got a precedent for being able to take this forward. Now, in the 80s, when I was exploited through prostitution, the people I was with, they had the highest level of technology that was available then and that wasn't even available to the public. But it was the 80s, so that when I got out, even though I worried for a while whether there were photographs of me or a video of me, after a number of years, I didn't worry about it anymore because I think now all it would be some grainy VHS tape that would probably be very hard to even recognize me if I was in it. But I've spoken to hundreds of women and I can't underestimate the trauma I've heard the fact that we've got social media, data that can be spread rapidly, data that just simply does not disappear. And that is a horrific thing to have to live with. And we need to do all we can to support women who have been victims in this way. It's not a fantasy. We talk about the virtual world as if it's not real. That's why people can sit behind their keyboards and say vile things that they'd probably never say in front of another person. We talk about being virtual and act like it's this ethereal thing, this fantasy that has no tangible reality. Well, it does. And the very real harms are visited upon the very real bodies of women and children. These websites are encouraging and enabling what happens behind that closed door. I have listened for over 25 years to women who've experienced being behind that closed door. I was behind that closed door. The door of five-star hotels, the door of palaces, the door of diplomats and embassies. What's behind that door is entitled men who believe that paying affords them permission to do anything, to rape, to threaten, to instill fear. On many occasions, I wondered if and how I would be coming out of that same door. We need a vision for Scotland, a long-term vision, and a vision that becomes a reality that we can be proud of, that rejects women being for sale with the inherent harm that results. A reality that robustly addresses the demand by criminalising pimps and traffickers, website facilitators and sex buyers. The Scottish Government needs to draw a firm line and robustly act on these realities. And so today I wholeheartedly support all the recommendations outlined in the report being launched, and just, cheer you on as we all try to take this forward in our different domains. Thank you.